Okay, I want to call this adjourned meeting of the City Council to order on this Thursday, June 20th. And obviously, all members are present, so as far as the call to order, roll call. We have public comments. We have members of the public that wish to speak, Andrea, at this time? No?
There's a couple cards, hold on.
Or is it regarding general item, or is it regarding the budget?
It says safety/illegal activity. Jonathan Chavez.
Okay, we'll bring him up then if we have 5 minutes. Is he here? Jonathan, come on up. Hello, sir, and you'll have 5 minutes.
So what I wanted to speak about was a business that's been giving us problems on Oak Glen for 4 or 5 years now. There's continuous illegal activity. They've had 3 illegal casinos. We've made the mayor aware of it, and it's been a consistent problem. I just wanted to make it aware to the rest of the council. We're having a problem where they're having people that frequent the establishment are now intimidating us, me and my wife, because we are property owners in Montclair. Just constant traffic from the churches that are on this property that are enabling what I see as drug addicts, and it's been a nightmare for us for 4 or 5 years from just the constant problems. I've had property damage to my vehicle and my property. I've had them break into my property. Numerous stolen vehicles abandoned on our block. Fires, all related to this business that has multiple churches on it, and we feel like they're enabling them to cause this dangerous for the residents, for not just myself, but the elderly people and the people that reside on that block, which is Oak Glen. The property is 10643 Mills Avenue, but it has a parking lot on the backside of it. We've we've made reports with the police department. We've contacted code enforcement about enforcing the business and the illegal activity. I don't know what else to tell you. I just wanted to come and let the rest of the council know that we've been having this continuous problem. Hopefully we can see if we can get it moving to get it resolved. We've talked to Ron, Gabe. We've tried to email their boss, who I forget his name at the moment, but yeah.
Yeah, hold on for a second. You have anything else you'd like to say?
Michael Diaz. I emailed you on the 5th.
Yeah, we haven't got a response from Michael Diaz for 3 weeks. So we've gone to Gabe, hear back a couple times, then no response. Then I guess somebody else came on board, Ron, which is under him. We get some more communication, better communication, then it just stops. Then we get forwarded to Michael Diaz, and no response, from an email for 3 weeks. Just basically telling them the same thing, that we've been trying to go down the chain of command to different people to see what we could get done. We're taxpayers in the city. We pay our property taxes, and we don't feel like we're getting represented. You don't still feel safe. I seem real nervous right now because I'm not a good public speaker, but I can't sleep at night, and it's affecting me. So 4 or 5 years, it's hard. Hopefully you guys can get something done or be made aware of.
Mike, can you give an update? Because I know that code is working on it. I realize there's legal issues going on with the property owner. I realize our attorney's involved. Our hands are kind of stalled right now until all these legal issues get resolved.
Right.
And then also there was a major cleanup in the channel and the railroad several weeks ago. But go ahead, Mike.
So code enforcement is aware, as I am, and the city manager and everybody else is aware of the situation that's going on. And our officers are have to go through due process and give proper warnings, and they are working with the property owners that are trying to sell the property too, and dealing with the new owners. So there is constant work going on their behalf. Ron's been there almost every other day, and they're working with our prosecuting attorney to get to the bottom of this. But there's processes we have to follow, and it takes time. It never happens that fast. Things go bad fast, but it's hard to clean up quickly.
Well, now we're being intimidated, so we can't even leave our vehicles on the street because they've been coming by our vehicles.
And this is 4 or 5 years. I don't know how long it takes to get something resolved. I don't know if you've personally been made aware of it. I know like I said, I've gone down the chain of commands. I've made reports with the police. I've made with, I don't know who Gabe is and who Rob is. I don't know if they're under you or whatever, but
Yeah, they're all the supervising code enforcement officers, so they're working in tandem with each other and following the due processes that they have to follow. And I'm aware of it. I've been down there 3-4 times too to see what's going on, and we're working to get that all cleaned up as soon as possible. And like the mayor said, we did have major cleanup in the area nearby. We also had a building that's just being finalized that took away a lot of the other area that's just to the east a little from you a little bit. And so there's new activity occurring there, and we're trying to get that all cleaned up as quickly as possible.
yeah, the cleanup hasn't helped. I mean, it goes away 1 or 2 days. We've asked for them to secure the property, to hold the school that's owner of the
empty
adjacent lot that frequents the transients or drug addicts that go between the businesses that are enabling these guys. And you know, I've gotten Ron to say, this is a month ago, he said, oh, it's gonna be secured. Still nothing. The train tracks is a whole nother issue. We see them going back and forth, stealing things off of the train between the businesses, and we've had multiple gunshots in and around the location. So I don't know how much you guys are aware of it, but I wanted to take the time to come down here and make everybody aware if it's not being communicated through somebody else. But yeah.
Well, it has been communicated, and we've heard, and they are working on trying to get a resolution to this situation as quickly as we can. Beg your patience on that, because that's what we have to do, is follow the process.
4 or 5 years was a process?
Well, I'm not aware of it starting 4 or 5 years ago, but I'm aware of it for the last, within the last 6 months to a year.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I've asked
Go ahead.
our Captain Brian Ventura to meet with them if they would go into the lobby. I also want to point out that I was down there today. I did observe that the property owner, which is the school district from Pomona, they have not been down there to clean it up yet. They were told about the conditions. They had made the commitment that they would be there to clean it up. And I will be issuing a directive to code enforcement to issue them a citation. And unless and until they get down there to clean up the property, they will be receiving regular citations from the city.
And I always felt, too, at the end of that block, there should be a wrought iron fence. I don't know if that's a discussion that we've had with the school district.
Well, again, it's not city property, it is.
I know we can't
you know,
require them to put it in, but
Right.
that will may help situation, may not, because they can actually open this, they can also bend those bars, I've seen that, but, so the captains will be happy to, and I apologize, it's a very difficult situation, especially down there, because you got a channel coming down there, you have a road that's coming down there. Yes, there was a major cleanup, but they're coming back. It's a cat and mouse game, unfortunately. I know that what's happening is code enforcement is trying to get up there as much as they can and try to get it cleaned out before it expands like it has done in the past. But the situation regarding the business, speaking of the commercial building, I've seen the reports, I've seen the citations, staff showed it to me. It's just a very complicated process they go through because of all the owner challenges that are happening there. I believe there's 2 owners, if I'm correct, 2 different owners involved, and they're in court right now.
Two siblings.
Suing each other,
two siblings.
they're suing each other or something on top of everything else, so.
I know you've been personally down there too. we've already brought our and friends. They've told us it's security, and I don't know who's lying to us, so it's just 4 or 5 years of constant runaround. I don't know what to say. What do we have to do? I have residents that are on the block that would love to come down here, but they're afraid because,
Well, they shouldn't be afraid. First of all, there should be retaliation. I know the captain will be happy to talk to you about that, because no one should be out there doing retaliation. That's unacceptable. That's a violation of law. So I hope that's not happening. But our goal is to clean up that commercial building. That's happening right now. It's just a long process. And then the challenge is how to deal with the channel and the tracks with the transits in the area. So that is the big challenge. The area is wide open. You can't put fences along the trains. I wish I could. The rail line.
Ontario has them, so I don't see why we can't.
They're having the same issues on Ontario too. I know they put some at the at Mountain Avenue, I believe, and actually they're also in Montclair. Those block walls. They have them there.
So it sounds like they're being proactive. I just asked myself why we aren't, having the same issue. I make it clear, Gabe and Ron, they're not retaliating against us. I mean, the people that are frequenting these
Right.
businesses are being made aware of. I don't know if they have the photos. I know that Gabe is in there with the church, and he's brought it to our attention to go in there and speak with these people. We have no reason to speak with these people because this is not our job to be putting ourselves on the front desk of being exactly what we're having retaliated. So that's why I leave it up to them. And
Well, we have to move on with the budget now, but I appreciate you coming, and I know the captain will be happy to talk to you.
thank you guys.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I believe there are no more public comments, and we will now begin the 24-25 budget review. So with the budget review, I was going to suggest that we have some stops, and I was going to start stopping at page 11 for any questions, and then we'll stop again at page 24, and then we'll do page 24, and after that, page 31, we can stop there. And then after that, we go all the way to page 44 and then to the end, page 64. So, who wants to begin?
Mr. Mayor, presenting the budget review this evening will be our Finance Director, Janet Colbeck. We have a PowerPoint presentation for your consideration.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, city staff, and members of the audience. Tonight, I'm here to present the fiscal year 2024 General Operating Fund Budget Review. Start with the overview and budget process. This evening's budget workshop provides an overview of the proposed fiscal year 2024-25 annual budget for the City of Montclair with focused discussion on the following topics: the budget process, producing a balanced budget, revenue and appropriations, unassigned and special purpose reserve funds, personnel services, building a better Montclair. The annual budget development process includes the following significant steps: Finance Department staff develop and refine revenue projections. Finance Department staff, in conjunction with departments, forecast personnel requirements. Department heads and their staff are provided with prior year amounts and formats for budgeting annual budget requests. Departments prepare their budget requests for appropriations. City manager and finance department meet with department heads and staff to evaluate, modify, and finalize department level requests. The proposed annual budget document is submitted for City Council review and consideration. Producing a balanced budget. The annual and primary goal related to budget preparation: produce an operating budget where revenues equal or exceed appropriations and programs and services are adequately funded to meet community and organizational needs and requirements. The fiscal year 2024-25 budget, as presented, has a net excess of general fund revenues over general fund operating appropriations in the amount of $500,000. This excess in general fund revenues is driven largely by revenue generated by Measure L. This surplus in general fund revenue over general fund appropriations has enabled the general fund unassigned reserve to be brought to $8.6 million, which is approximately 22.82% of the general fund operating appropriations and nears compliance with City Council's unassigned reserve ratio goal of 25%. Revenues. Here you see a table of the revenues. The current year is $72.9 million. The revised prior year is $69,175,000, a change of $3.7 million. And the general operating fund current year, $39.8 million, revised prior year, $39.3 million, a difference of an increase of $435,693. Significant revenue components general fund. $33 million in combined property sales and use and transaction and use taxes. This amount includes the following estimates: $15.4 million in Bradley Burns sales tax revenue, $11.1 million in transaction and use tax revenue related to Measure L, $2.7 million in transaction and use tax revenue related to Measure F, and $3.75 million in property tax revenue. And when you look at these numbers, we receive 1% in Bradley Burns tax. The transaction and use tax for Measure L is also 1%. But due to the fact that online sales are increasing and money goes to the county pool, or cities have contracts with fulfillment centers to receive all of the tax money, our transaction and use tax revenue for Measure L is down over $4 million, because it should be the same as the Bradley Burns tax. The transaction and use tax for Measure F, which is 0.25%, would be down $1.1 million because of that. Of the above total for taxes, the following amounts are allocated as indicated. Debt service on bonds, $2.5 million for the 2014 lease revenue bond, $2.3 million for the 2021 lease revenue bond, and $4.4 million for the 2021 pension obligation bond. $1.6 million to special purpose reserve funds for special governmental purposes. Other fiscal year 2024-25 general fund revenue adjustments. $522,278 increase in taxes other than property sales and use and transaction and use. $300,000 decrease in licenses and permits, due primarily to an expected decrease in the issuance of building permits. $31,000 decrease in fines and forfeitures, due primarily to a decrease in parking citations. $83,500 decrease in charges for services, due primarily to a decrease in plan checking fees. And a $5,800 increase in miscellaneous revenue, due primarily to an increase in other miscellaneous revenue. Significant revenue adjustments, all other fund accounts. $33,196 increase in the Section 2032 Road Maintenance Rehabilitation Fund, due primarily to an increase in gas prices. $1.35 million increase in the Park Development Fund, due primarily to housing developments in the city. $685,695 increase in the after-school program fund, due primarily to Ontario Montclair School District's new bid process and reallocation of resources that alter the number of schools and students served through the after-school program. $400,000 increase in the Economic Development Agency Assets Fund, due primarily to an increase in redevelopment property tax trust fund property taxes. And a $250,000 increase in the sewer operating fund, due primarily to an increase in sewer fees.
Okay, any questions so far? Anybody have a question? But, Bill?
The question I have, we have a $522,278 increase in taxes other than property sales and use, et cetera. Where is that coming from?
Primarily business license and utility users tax
And, okay, so it's UTT,
and business license.
okay. I'm guessing the bulk of that would be UTT rather than business license?
It's about the same, I think, for both.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Ben?
Yeah, let's see here. Thank you for the explanation on the Bradley Burns and the 1% tax, and explaining the $4 million differential. Let me back up here a bit. Let's go to page 11, the $1.3 million increase in the Park Development Fund. due primarily to housing developments in the city. Are those predominantly from the present developments in the northern part?
Yes, this is primarily associated with the Village Partners Project, and then we should see money coming in from the extension of the Kenley project, and then you have the Vulcan property will be under development, and that would produce some additional funding down the road.
So Village Partners, Vulcan, and Kendry.
Yes.
And I noticed in your summary, I know we haven't gotten there yet, but it does relate to it. There in the Park Development Fund, that's what I'm calling it. I don't have the exact title in front of me. I hope you know what I'm alluding to. The money that is being set aside for the parking structure in the northern part of the city, are these funds that are in this particular line item that we're talking about, are those the same funds, or these funds can be used towards that parking structure?
The money that's set aside in the Special Purpose Reserve Fund for the parking structure can only be used for that project at this point in time.
So this is a separate line item than that, correct?
Well, which slide are you talking
On
about?
page 11, the second arrow, 1.3 million increase in the park development.
No, this is a totally separate issue. This is only for relations to green space.
Okay, all right. For now, Mr. Mayor, I believe I'm fine.
Yeah, Ed, and if you can go back to just the sales tax issue again, the sales tax are flat, am I correct, Ed?
Sales tax are down 6.6%.
And this also was down last year, am I correct?
Okay, so
That's
the
year.
sales tax projection for last year is down 6.6%. We are projecting a 4% recovery for this next fiscal year. However, that's 4% on top of a 6.6 negative, so we're still going to be down 2.6%.
Okay, all right. So we're kind of beyond the sales tax. Okay. I just wanted to let the council understand that. All right, let's go on to appropriations.
Okay. So on this slide, we show department request versus city manager recommended. So for all funds, the departments requested 56.2 million. City manager approved is 52.6 million, a reduction of 3.5 million. For the general operating fund, department requests were 41.5 million. City manager approved is 37.6 million, a reduction of 3.8 million. The city manager recommended amounts, the current year versus the prior year. We have an increase of 4.1 million for all funds and an increase of 1.1 million for the general operating fund. Personnel services, all funds, 32.7 million of total appropriations, which is an increase from the prior fiscal year, or I should say the current fiscal year of 2023-24 of 29.7 million. The general fund, 26.1 million of general fund appropriations, an increase from 24.7 million for fiscal year 2023-24. Personnel increases year to year are related to the restoration of certain frozen or eliminated positions due to the COVID-19 pandemic, implementation of negotiated wage and benefit increases, and CalPERS public employee pension liabilities, which includes an increase this year. We're going up from just over 500,000 last year for UAL to a little over $1 million this year. So that's part of the increase. Also included in these numbers is workers' compensation and general liability claims.
And we want to remind you that we no longer allow the UAL to accumulate year to year. We pay it down each year so that we don't get into the position where it accumulated to $63 million. We did the pension obligation bond to pay it down, and part of that process was that commitment that any new UAL growth would be paid down on an annual basis.
Correct, and we also have our UAL POB amortization special reserve fund that we put money into every year to help pay for these unexpected UAL costs each year. For services and supplies, all funds 18.5 million, an increase from $17.4 million for fiscal year 2023-24. The general fund, $11 million of general fund appropriations, an increase from $10.1 million for fiscal year 2023-24. Capital outlay. For fiscal year 24-25, we have budgeted $1.3 million, of which $689,756 is being funded by the Equipment Replacement Fund. For the City Manager Department, a total of $387,738 for computer equipment for citywide requirements and a dump truck for Public Works. A portion of that will be paid by the SB 1383 grant we received. Police Department, $248,919 for 3 patrol vehicles. Fire Department, $517,271 for an assistant fire chief vehicle, a medic squad, hose, equipment, and radios for the fire engine that was purchased in fiscal year 2022-23, an assistant fire chief emergency conversion for his new vehicle, medic squad emergency conversion for the new medic squad, storable tables and chairs, administration personnel office chairs, a Lucas 3-chest compression system, and a LifePak 15 version 4. For the Public Works Department, $127,917 for a 500-gallon water trailer, a hydraulic breaker hammer, Ryan Jr. sod cutter, a 2024 Ford Super Duty F-250, a smart cover manhole lid system, and a carpet extractor. For the Community Development Department, $45,575 for a Panasonic Toughbook FZ55 laptops and a 2024 Chevrolet Colorado. You can see here a detail of the budget allocations for all departments for personnel services, services and supplies, and capital outlay. So the total amount is $52.6 million. And you add into that the $9.4 million for debt service, brings us to $62,049,111, which is an increase from the prior year or the current fiscal year of $4.1 million. The preliminary operating budget recommends the following transfers into the general fund operating budget: $100,000 from the traffic safety fund for applicable programs. The preliminary operating budget recommends the following transfers out from the general fund operating budget to the special purpose funds indicated below. Just under $500,000 to the Equipment Replacement Fund, $32,644 to the Technology Enhancements Fund, $50,000 to the Contingency Reserve Fund, $11,202 to the UAL POB Amortization Fund, $219,851 to the Public Parking Facility Development Fund, $500,000 to the Gold Line Betterment Reserve Fund, $100,000 to the Street Maintenance Reserve Fund, and $200,000 to the Homelessness Advocacy Housing Outreach Assistance Reserve Fund.
And let's stop right there for any questions. I apologize since I didn't note that. Any questions on the appropriations at this time? Denise?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple quick questions. One is regarding personnel services on page 14. I noticed when I went through the binder looking at different departments, there are several positions that say vacant, and then there are also some that say vacant unfunded. So my question is, on these operating appropriations, does that include all of the vacant positions that we're expecting to fill?
Yes, it includes all of the vacant positions, but not the vacant unfunded positions.
Thank you. And then my second question is on page 16 regarding operating appropriations. As you went through the different departments, I had a question because I think I heard, maybe I was misunderstood, but I think I heard that we have to replace the ladder truck. Is that accurate, or did I misunderstand?
I'll let Ed respond to that one.
You didn't hear it as part of our presentation,
Oh, I
so
did
you're
not.
hearing this from the
Other
drinking
sources.
fountain then. And so do we need to replace the ladder truck? I suppose that would be a matter of perspective. But in any event, we are working on a plan to acquire a new tiller truck down the road. We have obtained from Supervisor Hagman's office $1.3 million towards the purchase, $1.2 million for the purchase of a tiller truck, which will cost about $2.3 million. So our direction to the fire department will be that they need to work on, and they've already been directed to do so, work on the development of a grant to fund the additional balance of another $1.1 million, plus there will be about a $500,000 requirement to outfit the truck once it is here. It is our understanding that the wait time on a new tiller truck is about 4 years. And to give you a perspective, a tiller truck, it's one of those that is a bifurcated truck that has somebody sitting at the back of the truck and steers it from the back, so it provides greater mobility, particularly in tight spaces.
Well, will the tiller truck, and pardon me if I don't understand all this terminology, but will the tiller truck be able to have a ladder up to these tall buildings that we're building?
Yes, that is why. That is
What it
why
is?
we are looking at the tiller truck to address the high-density development that is occurring in North Montclair.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor, that concludes my
In
questions.
the meantime, we continue to have the existing ladder truck. I admit that oftentimes it's in the shop for repair, but it is still an operable vehicle.
All right, great. Ben?
Let's go back to page 14, please. The UAL account. We're on it. On page 2 of the city manager's summary, on table 2 of that document, the UAL POB amortization fund, there was an increase of revenues of, or a transfer amount of 11,202. Could you explain that?
Can you move to the appropriate slide?
It's actually not on the slide. This is your summary.
It is, it's.
It is?
Yeah.
It's, gotta find it, sorry.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, right here.
Right.
Yeah,
What's,
so this is the fund that we established to address the objective of paying off the pension obligation bonds as well as the annual increase in the UAL. So part of the formula going forward when we did the pension obligation bonds is that the city would take the existing approximately $4.6 million that was budgeted on an annual basis at that time. We use that as the base year, and we would continue to allocate that amount of money on an annual basis to make certain that we have the funds going forward annually for 20 years until the pension obligation bond is paid off. And then each year, we would add additional funds to the this particular special purpose fund so that we could build up an account to hopefully pay off the pension obligation bonds earlier and make certain that we have funds to address any potential increases related to the pension obligation bond annual payoff.
so this is in addition to the $4.2, $4.4 million payment?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And as you stated, every year we pay off, or we make that payment, and I'm assuming that happens shortly after July 1st. It's one of the first expenses. Perfect.
We make it in one payment so we don't incur any interest charges, and it's actually a little bit less of a
Oh,
payment.
I appreciate that. That makes sense. Page 16, under City Manager Department, the dump truck for Public Works, the SB 1383 grant, what's the amount of that grant?
I believe the grant was right around $100,000, so the city doesn't have to put much into it. But the reason why it appears here is because the grant was made available through the city manager's department, through the Economic Development Agency working on it. And so it's not directly funded through the Public Works Department, which is why it's not reflected there. But obviously, I don't have a use for it, so I'm graciously giving it to the Public Works Department.
Yeah, I believe the grant was maybe around 125,000, but there's other costs that we have to cover because we have agreement with somebody that helps us with our food waste inspections and making sure that's on board, so.
So is that dump truck around the price tag of $250,000 itself? Is that how my understanding it?
No, it's $104,000.
104, yeah.
okay, I wasn't sure if the 104, 738 was the expense by the city, but in addition to the money from the grant. That's why I was asking.
No, and about $70,000 of that will be paid by the grant.
Perfect. I was gonna say, that's gonna be one expensive dump truck.
Yeah.
Page 17, the Community Development Department, the 6,000 Panasonic, $6,000 for the laptops. How many laptops are we purchasing?
Well, it's 4 to 6. It will ultimately depend on the cost of the laptops. We have 4 code enforcement officers who are out in the field. In addition to that, we have the senior code enforcement officer, and then we have the 2 members of the special enforcement team. And the objective will be to get as many of the tough books if we can. And if the tough books don't resolve our needs, then there are other alternatives that we can look at. But it does have to be something that is durable for them to use out in the field. So our objective is to get somewhere between 4 to 6.
And I'm assuming they're gonna be completely loaded.
Well, we'll load them with the software that we need because they require specialized software. So this is just the, this is just for the laptops.
Okay. And I'll ask questions further in with respect to the Gold Line Betterment account and the homeless advocacy account. That is it for now, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, let's move on. Then we'll keep this going until we get to, let's say, all the way to personnel, past personnel. So which give us to page 31.
Okay. Now we'll discuss the general fund operating fund balance, the unassigned reserve. So this table shows how we've been the last several years as far as our unassigned operating fund balance. At the end of the fiscal year 2024-25, we're estimating our operating fund balance for unassigned reserve will be $8.6 million, which is 22.82% of operating appropriations. Government Finance Officers Association General Fund Unassigned Reserve Ratio recommendation is minimum 25%, optimum is 50%. City Council direction, maintain minimum unassigned reserve ratio of 25% of operating appropriations with a goal to achieve a 50% unassigned reserve ratio. Estimated June 30th, 2025 general operating funds fund balance estimate of approximately $8.6 million nears the threshold target of 25% of operating appropriations. Estimated June 30th, 2025 general revenue fund reserve fund equity representing reserves for special purposes is $34.2 million. Over the past 7 fiscal years, the reserve ratio has fluctuated with a low of 20% and a high of 24.95%. These fluctuations are generally the result of the following: a difference in operating appropriations between consecutive years, adjustments to the city's revenue profile, creation of the following debt service funds to achieve adequate funding for annual payments: the 2021 issue of lease revenue bonds debt service fund, 2021 issue of pension obligation bonds debt service fund, and the UAL POB amortization fund. Adjustments to balances and special purpose reserve funds to address a variety of issues. Establishing additional special purpose reserve funds to reflect changing requirements related to city operations, and funding assigned to the Economic Development Agency for real property acquisition. City staff will continue to strive to obtain a fund balance ratio in the general operating fund's unassigned reserves that represents no less than 25% of the general operating fund's appropriations budget, with the long-term goal of achieving a 50% unassigned reserve ratio. Maintaining general funds fund balance and reserves. In recent years, the city's success at achieving and maintaining a healthy general operating fund unassigned reserve fund balance has been accomplished through commitment to the following coordinated objectives: fiscal restraint achieved by implementation of sound economic policies and practices, reviewing the shared allocation of personnel-related costs between the general operating fund, other city entities, and other city funds, maintaining an appropriate employee ratio, requiring employees to pay their respective share of the CalPERS member contribution, implementation of revenue enhancement measures. Recent and ongoing efforts designed to enhance city revenues include the following: November 2020 voter approval of Measure L, a 1% transaction and use tax measure, ongoing evaluation of service contracting for specified programs, the objective to maintain and enhance services and achieve cost efficiencies as appropriate, November 2022 voter approval of Measure R, a 7% commercial cannabis tax measure, fiscal year 2025-26 implementation of a Proposition 64 compliance program, related fee structure, and community benefits contribution program, promoting development within North Montclair pursuant to the amended North Montclair Downtown Specific Plan with projects to include high-density residential and mixed-use development, pursue development within the Montclair Place District Specific Plan area with development to incorporate housing and address the changing nature of the retail and entertainment industry, promote housing, commercial, and industrial development projects throughout the Montclair community, adopt the general plan update and the Arrow Highway Mixed-Use District Specific Plan to promote appropriate zoning patterns throughout the community and direct development in the northeast area of the city. In conjunction with San Bernardino County, conduct a specific plan study for Montclair's sphere of influence, address matters related to the impact of sales tax sharing agreements coupled with restrictive designations for point of sale on Montclair's sales tax revenues. You wanted to continue with personnel? Okay, I'm sorry. Personnel services. Personnel services, we have 206 full-time positions. 205.66 are assigned to general fund, sewer fund, and grants, and .34 are assigned to the Montclair Successor Redevelopment Agency, and we have one part-time benefited position. The city's fiscal year 2024-25 proposed operating budget anticipates only minor adjustments to classifications to ensure the effective and efficient operation of city departments, promote personnel retention, achieve depth of experience, ensure the provision of city services, and provide for necessary lines of succession, supervision, and management. Classification modifications are submitted to the City Personnel Committee for consideration prior to implementation of classification modifications and/or the appointment of qualified and appropriate personnel.
All right, thank you. Any questions on this at this time? Anybody have questions? On the personnel, I believe there's 2 positions in the police department and 2 positions in the fire department are frozen, and we're going to apply for grants for both. That's my understanding?
Yes, that is correct. Both departments are in the process of applying for those positions.
Okay. All right, Carissa.
206 full-time positions seems like a big jump from last year. Where were we at last year?
Well, we got down to about 173 positions following the Great Recession, and we've been building back ever since. So I can't tell you exactly where we were last year, but probably actually down because of the frozen positions, I would think.
Great.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's move on to Building a Better Montclair then. And we'll go all the way to page, looks like page 44.
Okay. Building a Better Montclair. Building a Better Montclair requires a team of dedicated leaders committed to excellence and the pursuit of ideas and ideals. To achieve this blend of municipal achievement, the city manager regularly challenges the organization with new objectives designed to promote improvements to the overall quality of life in Montclair, facilitate infrastructure improvements throughout the city, promote and achieve strategic objectives as established by the City Council, promote commercial and residential development throughout the city, establish an effective grants program to secure state, federal, and county grants for a variety of physical and economic improvements for the community, promote extension of the light rail transit to and development of the Montclair Trans Center, develop solutions to community issues including homelessness and affordable housing, address long-term issues requiring dedicated funding for specific purposes, for example, pension liabilities, bond obligations, infrastructure improvements, and capital requirements, promote and enhance community service and public safety programs, produce revenue for employee working condition enhancements, address state and federal legislative priorities that affect organizational operations, strengthen and harden Montclair against adverse fiscal conditions, and address City Council-directed priorities and objectives. Pursuing infrastructure improvements. Central to the effort to build a better Montclair is the capacity to identify funds necessary to achieve a robust program of improvements. The city is aggressive in its pursuit of grants at the federal, state, and county level and combines funding received from these grants with 2021 lease revenue bond funds to promote and complete new projects. Rarely, if ever, have American cities seen the infusion of funds now available through an extensive series of federal and state grants. These funds come courtesy of the $1 trillion Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. On a funding level, the IIJA achieves the following. The largest federal investment in public transit in U.S. history, the nation's single largest dedicated bridge investment, the nation's largest investment in clean drinking water and wastewater infrastructure, bringing access to reliable high-speed internet to every part of the nation, tackling the climate crisis by making the largest investment in clean energy transmission, creating a grid deployment authority to build a clean electric grid. The majority of available grants require either matching public funding, private investment, such as those incentivized by tax credits, or both. Montclair is presently in an enviable position due to the availability of local match funding through the 2021 issue of lease revenue bonds. Since 2018, Montclair has applied for approximately $101 million in grants from various sources, has been awarded approximately $40 million in grant funding to date, and has approximately $84 million in grant awards pending. Montclair's success in this effort has no parallel in the city's 68-year history and is unlikely to be surpassed over the next generation. As a local invested stakeholder, Montclair should continue pursuing grant funding to rebuild and reimagine the Montclair community, particularly as formula or direct grant spending continues moving out at a steady pace within each of the IRA's and IIJA's major infrastructure sectors. The Gold Line in North Montclair. Gold Line. Grants received by other agencies will also have beneficial effects for the Montclair community. The Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority is expected to receive approximately $1.3 billion in state funds for transportation transit projects. Of the $1.3 billion, $800 million is projected to be committed toward completion of the Foothill Gold Line light rail from Pomona to Claremont. San Bernardino County Transportation Authority will provide the balance of approximately $98 million for extension to the Montclair Trans Center. Montclair has allocated $1.75 million to a Gold Line Betterment Special Purpose Reserve Fund toward construction of a pedestrian bridge and other betterments at the Montclair Trans Center to complement Gold Line operations. North Montclair. Promoting development in North Montclair is designed to improve the overall quality of life in the community, create new housing, office, and mixed-use projects, move forward the city's vision for a transit-oriented district, and improve Montclair's property and sales tax base. Projects contemplated for or now under development in North Montclair include the following. Village at Montclair. The 360 mixed-unit development is now under construction, with the first units available in late 2024 or early 2025, with 10 ground floor units serving as commercial units. Montclair Kendry expansion. This high-density 137-unit residential project is now under construction and being developed in association with the existing Alexan Kendry development. Marlowe. This project will consist of 302 residential units with construction beginning in late 2024. Montclair Place. CIM Group has submitted plans for a 606 residential unit mixed-use development, which includes commercial space. The project remains under review by CIM Group pending availability of funding in a tight lending market. Main Event Entertainment. Main Event is a chain of family entertainment centers that feature bowling alleys, arcades, miniature golf, escape rooms, as well as other family-oriented games, and a restaurant. Panera Bread. This restaurant is currently under construction on Marina Street and is expected to open for service in late 2024. Arrow Highway and Fremont Avenue improvements. City staff recently completed final construction and engineering design, and segment improvements are currently under construction in partnership with a contractor for the Village at Montclair development. NMDSP Montclair Place District Street Design and Engineering. In June 2022, the City Council approved to design and engineer roadway improvements in the NMDSP Montclair Place District. Montclair Trans Center related projects. Montclair Trans Center property acquisition. City staff continue to advocate for transfer of the Caltrans owned parcels at the Montclair Trans Center to the city for development through a public-private partnership. Montclair has applied for a $25 million raise grant for property acquisition. Montclair Trans Center Master Project Site Plan. A master site plan for the Montclair Trans Center and surrounding transitional areas is under development and will include market rate and affordable housing, a 1,300 space parking structure, a secured station platform, a central plaza, parkland and green spaces, and street and grid block design. City staff has requested that LA Metro conduct a parking analysis to determine if parking requirements at the Trans Center can be reduced, thereby reducing the cost of construction for a Trans Center parking structure. Promoting a stronger economic foundation. Evaluate service contracting. The city manager will continue to evaluate outsourcing of services to promote cost efficiencies and enhance services for the community. Implement a Proposition 64 compliance program. At the direction of City Council, the Economic Development Agency is now in the process of redrafting the medicinal and adult use cannabis regulation and safety law of the City of Montclair for presentation to the City Council in 2025. Staff projects that a regulatory system for commercial cannabis will produce between $2 million and $3 million annually. Redevelopment of Montclair Place. The ongoing redevelopment of Montclair Place is intended to address the changing nature of the retail industry, particularly as those changing dynamics affect major retail shopping centers throughout the nation. Promoting development of the Montclair Place district would improve the overall quality of life in the community and enhance the city's sales and property tax base. Economic Development Agency and its role in promoting economic development and promotion of affordable housing development. The purpose of the Economic Development Agency is to provide and enhance funding for real property acquisition, affordable housing development, homeless assistance, and economic development activities. In the fiscal year 2024-25 proposed operating budget, the Economic Development Agency assess funds retain the following: a fund balance of $5.7 million, $3.1 million in low moderate income housing funds, and $13.2 million in residual receipt funds. Promoting housing, commercial, and industrial development and healthy Montclair projects throughout the community. Promoting development throughout the Montclair community would improve the overall quality of life in the community and improve the city's sales and property tax base. Projects currently underway in Montclair include the following: citywide development. A number of housing, commercial, and logistics projects have already been completed in the city's southern sector, with other projects in development. Tiki Drive-In Mission Project. This project will accommodate a mix of light industrial, manufacturing, and logistics support in a campus environment. The project is currently under construction. Reeder Ranch Park. Construction on the Reeder Ranch Park, adjacent to the historic Reeder Heritage Ranch, is projected for completion in late 2024. Saratoga Park. In 2022, the city received $2 million in community project funding from the Office of Congresswoman Nora Torres for improvements to Saratoga Park, the city's Little League sports field. City staff has also applied for an urban greening program grant in the amount of $4.3 million. San Antonio Creek Trail and Sunset Park. When completed, the entire length of the San Antonio Creek Trail will provide new connections between neighborhoods, parks, recreation centers, schools, transit areas, job centers, and other community destinations. A pilot section of the trail at Sunset Park is currently under construction.
Okay, so I'll stop there. Denise, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question about Montclair Place on page 39. The 606 residential units, is that Sears or is that the place where Robbins Brothers was?
That's where Robbins Brothers was.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Okay, Bill?
When we're, excuse me, when we're talking about, and I'm trying to find the page number here, I had it. The monies we're putting aside for low to moderate income housing, here it is, $5.7 million. In looking to construct some of this, are we looking at also trying to acquire grants? Because there are grants out there through state or federal that would help speed up the process.
We are looking at applying for grants. In fact, at the San Diego County Transportation Authority COG City Manager Tech Committee meeting this morning, SCAG has indicated that they would be providing a $5 million grant to the new Housing Trust Fund that the COG is currently in the process of setting up, and Montclair will be applying for their share of that funding. And we are also obviously looking at other available grants that will allow us to develop affordable housing. And we did understand that Senator Susan Rubio was trying to put together a bill this year that would create a larger housing trust fund for the Southern California, for the Los Angeles region. And I don't believe that bill has gone anywhere. So we'll look at other sources as they become available.
And then, and I don't have the page here. We're talking about the transit center trying to reduce the parking spaces?
Yes. So right now, there are 1,600 parking spaces at the Trans Center. If we are to develop the Trans Center lots into housing projects and other types of development, then we would be required to continue providing for the 1,600 parking spaces.
Right.
We would be building a parking structure on the south side of the tracks as part of the Village Partners project. It's our anticipation that that parking structure will house about 300 parking spaces. That would mean that we would have to build approximately 1,300 parking space structure on the north side of the tracks within the existing parking fields that are currently available and owned by Caltrans. However, the Los Angeles Metropolitan Transportation Authority has undertaken studies of each of the Gold Line stations along the route that they are currently building. And in their studies, they made the determination that the parking demands that they originally projected for each one of those stations is it's no longer necessary that they achieve the levels they originally projected. They did not study Montclair because the Montclair Trans Center is in San Bernardino County. San Bernardino County Transportation Authority did not join with LA Metro in conducting a study on the parking requirement at the Montclair Trans Center. So in our current conversations with the Gold Line Construction Authority, as we plan out the design and development and the arrival of the Gold Line at the Montclair Trans Center, at our meeting of last week, we asked that they ask LA Metro to conduct a parking study at Montclair to determine if we still need to maintain the 1,600 spaces, or in their study of our trans center, are they going to determine that that requirement is more or less than that 1,600 spaces? We've been advised by the construction authority that it's very likely that it will be much less than the current 1,600 spaces required.
I just, in my simple thinking, if we can currently park 1,600 there, I think we'd want to at least have that for the future. And then if we don't need it, we could do something else. I think, you know, I constantly hear in this city, there's not enough parking, not enough parking, not enough parking. And then when we have a place that can really handle it, then we want to cut it down. So I'm also concerned, and it's not part of this budget thing, but about any entity, public, private, or otherwise, that tries to charge there. I think that would be just a sham on the people. Thank you.
Okay, Ben.
Yes, page 35. The second bullet point that says the nation's single largest dedicated bridge investment, which prompted me to inquire about the Central Avenue overpass. I believe we discussed this maybe a month and a half ago at council. We have a certain dollar amount secured at present, but we are short funds, and we're waiting on a grant application. Am I correct?
Yes, that is correct.
What amount do we have again?
Well, so we technically have 15 million. However, Caltrans has indicated to us that the bridge has somehow repaired itself to some degree, and therefore it no longer needs to be replaced, and not necessarily even refurbished so much as the roadway just needs to be repaved. So they've indicated that, well, maybe you only need a couple of $1 million instead of the 15 million. We are obviously in discussion with Caltrans about that and impressing upon them that no, the bridge needs to be widened and it probably needs to be replaced and not refurbished. It does not, to just repave it, doesn't comply with the nexus study that has been completed by the San Bernardino County Transportation Authority, which calls for the widening of the bridge. And bridges do not magically repair themselves despite Caltrans's best hopes because of funding issues that they may have. So we're continuing to push to hold on to the 15 million and trying to develop the additional $20 million that we would need to complete the project.
The 20 million is the shortfall.
We anticipate about 32 to 35 million to complete the bridge, yes.
Okay, thank you for that. And I do think it's absurd that the bridge that was somehow deemed unsafe and perhaps not up to par, meeting even seismic retrofit, is somehow repaired itself. That is almost insulting. I would agree with you. Page 37, the Gold Line betterment allocation. So the money that is being allocated into this account is just going to be cumulatively added to every fiscal budget, correct?
As money is available, yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Because I was thinking, obviously, we don't have any bridge yet to build or any other amenities. I believe it was a new Montclair, welcome Montclair sign or whatnot. So this money will not be touched at all at the end of 2025. It'll only be added to, I'm not saying the same amount, but it'll only be added to for the 25-26 year and going forward.
Correct.
Okay, thank you for that. My colleague, Ms. Johnson, asked the question about the 606 units. I'm referring to page 39. Since we're talking about CIM Group and the Montclair Plaza location, I've been here, guys, since I was in the 70s, so I still call it Montclair Plaza. It's just a habit. Are there still plans to construct a possible, is it a 9-story structure on the property?
Well, that's in the specific plan. We are not at that stage of discussion yet. Right now, we're still trying to work with them on the existing proposals that they have before us and other improvements that they are planning for that are more commercial related as opposed to residential at this moment.
And that site at the Robbins Brothers, the old building there, how many parking units are proposed in that development?
Okay, so it's going to be podium parking. At least that's the proposal that they've presented to us with parking underground. And the project, if I recall, originally was supposed to park around 900 spaces, something of that nature. They are now talking about maybe phasing the project because of the tightness of funding for construction right now. So that would mean that they would build maybe half of the units. And then as they enter into construction, they will try to secure the additional funding to complete the other half of the project, with all of it being underground parking.
And just as a side note, I was taken aback by the line on page 35 regarding Panera Bread. Mr. City Manager, I sent you an inquiry regarding the opening of that, and I was under the impression that the restaurant would open perhaps sometime in July. Has something changed from that last email to today?
No, this is probably just my being careless in determining what the actual opening date is. Our understanding is right now that the property actually may be up for sale. So that kind of lends some uncertainty as to when the actual opening date is. So I felt it was better just to leave it as late 2024 because of that uncertainty.
Well, fair enough. I appreciate that. Although I would like to see the place open. If you guys are listening, please open up quickly. You have a lot of residents that are inquiring about it, that are excited about it, and they would love to come to you. My family's one of them, so.
Can I add just a quick note?
Sure.
Tomorrow, I'm doing a final on the project. The fences is down. They're cleaned up the site, and it could be as early as next month. But notwithstanding any transfer of the property to another entity that Mr. Starr was talking about. So keep your fingers crossed, because it looks like it's really on the
Yeah, I appreciate that.
cusp of opening.
I
anytime.
appreciate that. Page 41, Mr. City Manager, I believe when we last had before this council, the issue of, I believe we had an item before us to enter into a contract to begin the process of drafting a marijuana ordinance. I think council gave you direction to have them please get it to us within a 6-month time frame, but I'm caught off guard again by the phraseology and the presentation that it would come to the city council in 2025. What's the change?
Well, the council did say that, and my rebuttal on that was that I did not think that that was practical and that it would probably be 2025 when the ordinance would actually be brought to the city council. So yes, I do recognize that you said that, but I also did make that statement that I did not think that was a practical achievement.
Well, please convey to them that that's the directive of this council, that we would like them to, if it's move hell or high water, please do so. I'd like to see that.
I think we asked for just an update by the end of the year of where things are at, so.
Fair enough. For now, I believe that is it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Nobody else has anything else, so we'll go on to the next section. Go ahead.
Okay, now we'll discuss the general fund special purpose funds. Special purpose funds established to address current and future liabilities, programs, projects, goals, requiring a commitment of funds not incorporated into the general operating fund budget. CalPERS unanticipated normal cost retains $3.5 million for CalPERS and post-employment liabilities. Technology enhancements account retains $700,000 for technology acquisitions. Self-insurance fund retains $1.6 million for city-related self-insurance retention liabilities. The building maintenance fund retains $1.9 million for building maintenance. Unanticipated personnel adjustment fund retains $1 million for unanticipated personnel-related expenditures. Equipment replacement fund retains $2.7 million for equipment acquisitions, and this amount reflects a reduction of $689,756 towards fiscal year 2024-25 capital outlay purchases. OPEB retiree medical liability retains $2 million for other post-employee benefits. Long-term objective is $13 million based on actuarial study. Excuse me. The contingency account retains $250,000 for unanticipated expenditures. UAL POB amortization service fund retains $5.1 million for unanticipated UAL charges. Parking facility development retains $9.8 million for parking facility development. Inflation Recession Control Expenditure Fund retains $1 million for unanticipated cost increases. Gold Line Betterment Fund retains $1.75 million for aesthetic improvements to infrastructure for the Gold Line light rail system at Monte Vista Avenue and the Montclair Trans Center. Street Maintenance Fund retains $1.35 million for street maintenance. The Homelessness Advocacy Housing Outreach Assistance Fund retains $700,000 for homelessness aid. The total estimated all special purpose funds is $33.5 million, and that is after the proposed equipment replacement fund uses. The 2014 issue of lease revenue bonds payment period fiscal year 2014 to 2045. Debt service 2014 issue of lease revenue bond, the issue amount was $45 million, and we purchased this bond to defease the balance of the 2005 issues, which was used for police facility and youth and senior center projects, and it provided approximately $22 million for public works infrastructure projects. These funds have been exhausted. The annual debt service is approximately $2.6 million through fiscal year 2044-45. Funding source for the annual debt service is the general fund revenue, and it's $2.5 million. The 2021 issue of lease revenue bonds, the payment period fiscal year 2022 to 2051. Debt service 2021 issue of lease revenue bonds, the issue amount was $45 million. The purpose was to complete infrastructure improvement projects throughout the city, and the remaining balance is approximately $38.6 million. Annual debt service, approximately $2.4 million through fiscal year 2050-51. And the funding source is also the general fund, and the payment this year for next fiscal year is just under $2.4 million. The 2021 issue of pension obligation bonds, payment period fiscal year 2021 to 2041. Debt service, 2021 issue of pension obligation bond, issue amount was $62.1 million. The purpose was to transfer debt from the city's California Public Employees Pension System unfunded accrued liability account to the pension obligation bond. Annual debt service, approximately $4.4 million through fiscal year 2040-41. The funding source for this annual debt service is the general fund. Payment for fiscal year 2024-25 is just over $4.4 million. Proposed budget conclusion. Fiscal year 2024-25 general fund operating budget was a successful and a balanced budget. Utilizes a number of funds and strategies to achieve balance and respond to a number of community and organizational needs. The passage of Measure L in 2020 greatly improved the city's revenue profile, generating an estimated $11.12 million in transactions and use tax revenues for fiscal year 2024-25. However, the city experienced a 6.6% decline in sales tax revenues for fiscal year 2023-24 and is projected to experience only a marginal 4% year-over-year recovery for fiscal year 2024-25. The fiscal year 2024-25 proposed budget incorporates the following debt service funds. 2014 issue of lease revenue bonds debt service fund, $2.5 million. The 2021 issue of lease revenue bonds debt service fund, $2.3 million. And the 2021 issue of pension obligation bonds debt service fund, $4.4 million. The fiscal year 2024 budget, as proposed, also incorporates the allocation of funds for the following special reserve funds. We discussed these earlier. I won't go over all the dollar amounts again. For fiscal year 2024-25, each city department was provided greater flexibility in the preparation of their respective budget programs. Minimal adjustments that took into consideration historical data, expenditure details, actual and projected needs, and available funding were made to budget requests. Going forward, city staff will routinely look at fresh approaches for service delivery, continue to evaluate grants and outside funding opportunities, seek to develop strategies to improve both the appearance and infrastructure of the community, promote new revenue concepts, pursue development of the city's commercial and residential base, promote economic development opportunities by drawing on the city's past and effective promotion of redevelopment, continue to develop the city's expanding partnership with CIM Group and other developers for investments in North Montclair, and work with legislatures and the city council to move Montclair forward. That is the end of the fiscal year 2024 proposed budget review presentation.
Okay, before we get to the Housing Corporation, any questions at this time? Bill?
Yes, the question I have is, just because I didn't see it in here doesn't mean it isn't there. If memory serves, Burtech pays about $250,000, $250,000 a year to the city for their, the fact that their trucks may cause damage on our street. Yet my understanding is that that $250,000 is supposed to be used to purchase equipment and things like that in the city. I didn't see it in here, but where is that money being used?
Okay, well, you're speaking of the pavement impact fee, and it doesn't generate anywhere near that amount of money. It's probably around $60,000 to $75,000 a year. And it goes to the Public Works Department for Public Works-related projects, street improvements.
Okay.
All right, anything else, Bill?
No, that's it.
Okay, Ben?
Page 49 of the presentation. Basically, a general comment with respect to the homeless advocacy, et cetera, assistance fund. We will have $700,000 in the account, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the only description that I have to work off with respect to how the money's to be used is housing outreach, assistance reserve fund to provide funding for homelessness advocacy, housing outreach assistance. And I know that the funds will be distributed by the Economic Development Department and Community Development. Is that money predominantly going to be used for housing homeless individuals, or whether it be putting them in long-term or temporary housing? Are we just strictly talking the allocation for vouchers type of thing?
Well, it will have universal application, and that would certainly be one of them, particularly as the state funds dry up and the county is less generous with the funds that they have that they're handing out to organizations. So we would be using this fund to assist. In fact, we've already put money in the budget separate from this that would be used specifically for the purpose that you spoke of, and that would be to provide vouchers and other forms of immediate assistance to homeless individuals. But council members will recall that a month ago we made a extensive presentation to this council regarding the homeless issue in the city, and a lot of this money is geared towards the objectives that were presented in that budget workshop. One of the things that we talked about was to work cooperatively with San Bernardino County to develop a West End Navigation Center. We don't know what the cost parameters are that are going to be related to that, but this would certainly be seed money to help Montclair to participate in that. I think that the county's formula will be that not every city has to participate, but if you are going to participate, you need to pay for your share of beds, and your beds will always be available then to you. So we would have to have money to allow us to participate in that. And then today at the COG meeting that I attended, the COG announced that part of the program, one of the programs that they will be developing as part of the COG will be a homeless advocacy program. They don't have any fund components associated with that yet, what it's going to cost. So this will be money that will allow us to provide the seed that we initially need to get into the partnerships with the county in relation to those programs, as well as locally. We already have partnerships with a number of agencies that provide services to residents in the city of Montclair. And this money would be to provide some seed money to allow us to continue to work cooperatively with those agencies as well, to provide outreach to the community. And we are looking at expanding that opportunity to invite additional service providers into the community that would also provide and augment our ability to provide outreach to the homeless.
And did we have any, or are we expected to have any carryover in this same account from this year to the next fiscal year?
Well, it depends on what we may spend this year. Is there carryover? The 700,000 is the carryover that is in the fund right now. So that would include money that was from last year, as well as the money that was indicated earlier in the presentation this evening, the amount that we would be putting into this particular fund.
Okay.
Just to add on homeless.
I believe that was a couple $100,000.
Yes.
Just a question I have on homeless, just as we're here. Ed, I know in the current fiscal year, we hired a consultant. I believe that's how some of this money got used for this year.
Yes.
I believe you mentioned a nonprofit group that's already in Montclair, expanding their services in Montclair and then providing them a facility as well, Ed?
Yes. Right now, we work with Christian Development Center, and then, of course, we've been working with Set Free Ministry. And Set Free Ministry is the entity that we are discussing about placing in one of the houses that we own, the one that used to be the tax building on Central Avenue. And they are very much interested in going in there, and as part of our agreement with them, they will provide outreach services for the community. They won't pay us a fee except for $1 a year for leasing the facility. Their in-kind contribution to the city will be those outreach services.
Okay, thank you.
Are we at the point at the end for just general questions, Mr. Mayor?
Are you had no more questions on this last section? We have one more. We have the Housing Authority. We should probably get that presentation
Okay,
out of the way.
And then I do have some general about the budget, but if we can move on to housing.
All right, let's do housing.
Montclair Housing Corporation proposed budget for fiscal year 2024-25. So the list of list of Montclair Housing Corporation properties are contained in the Montclair Housing Corporation budget. The estimated fund balance at July 1, 2024 is $1.7 million. The estimated revenue for fiscal year 24-25 is $975,000 in rental income and $18,000 in interest income, for a total fund balance of $2.6 million. Positions previously funded by the Housing Corporation are now fully funded by the general fund, an action that reserves Housing Corporation funding for maintenance and expansion of the city's affordable housing program. So the total expenses for the Montclair Housing Corporation for fiscal year 2024-25 is just over $1 million. And with the beginning balance of 1.6 million, that brings the ending fund balance at June 30th, 2025 to just over 1.6 million. That concludes the presentation for the Montclair Housing Corporation.
Great. Just a question on the Housing Corporation. We own 104 units, am I correct?
Yes.
And we generate just shy of $1 million a year from the 104 units.
Yes.
So if my math does me correctly, we're charging just shy of $800 a month per unit.
Well, it varies based on their
Varies, yeah.
availability to pay, their income, but yes.
So that is definitely an affordable housing program we have for rentals in Montclair that not too many other cities have. So I ran the math the other day and I just realized that. So we're just shy of $800 in the average is what we're charging for a residential unit. That's pretty good, I think. Nonetheless, we'll move on. Any of the questions we have on the budget, comments? We'll start with Ben.
Yeah, some general questions. What's the status of us installing broadband? I believe that was part of the COVID expense, the COVID money that came in, the one-time allocation?
Yeah, so we've installed, so there are different kinds of systems. And Wi-Fi is the kind of system that you hook up to from your computer without direct connection. And that's essentially what we've installed. So for example, we've installed it at the Trans Center, we've installed it at the Civic Center, and other hotspots throughout the community. Broadband is a much more expensive process. There are only 2 cities in San Bernardino County, as far as I know, that have entered onto a broadband approach, and that is the City of Ontario, in which they've invested tens of millions of dollars in. And Loma Linda, oddly enough, has done broadband, but that's primarily because of the hospital. And other than that, there are no other cities in San Bernardino County that have done that. We have applied and are applying for grant funding through the state of California. My understanding is that that funding won't actually be available until later this year. There have been some grant announcements that have come out, and we will be applying for those grants to do some broadband assistance in those areas of the community where we do not have that capacity, although it is my understanding that Verizon, or not Verizon, but Frontier has actually stepped forward and are beginning to address those weak areas in the community where broadband has not been generally available. So for the most part, Montclair, at least for the last decade, has had a fairly strong fiber optic backbone, but there were some weak areas. So for example, the neighborhood behind on the west side of Costco did not have broadband capability there, but Frontier has now extended it there, and they're looking at extending it in other areas as well. So it's not that broadband will necessarily be a weakness for us as far as the community, but any broadband approach that we are probably going to pursue will be to strengthen our facilities as opposed to providing broadband outreach to the community, because Frontier is now stepping forward to take care of that.
So the places that we've installed Wi-Fi for purposes of the public to use are the Trans Center and here at the Civic Center.
And all of city facilities and parks, I believe, as well.
Okay. The discussion about the tiller truck, you stated we got 1.3 million from Supervisor Hagman, but what is the estimated total price of the tiller?
1.2 million from Hagman's office, and the tiller truck, the quote that I've received from the fire department as part of the budget process this year was approximately $2.3 to $2.4 million for the tiller truck, and then about $500,000 to equip it. So about $2.7 million total.
So the remaining balance that we're short, we're going to apply for a grant. In the event that we're denied a grant for that funding, given the high-density developments going in the north that'll be up and running in a matter of months, I would hope that we would not delay the purchase of that the balance, could we not take it out of the equipment fund?
Well, that would be up to the council if that's their policy direction. However, we would not be able to apply for a grant because once you commit the funds, you can't apply for a grant.
Well, no, of course, that's all dependent on us getting a rejection letter if we did on the grant itself. Just having a plan B for us to look at investing in getting that truck, I wouldn't want it delayed, given the number of development and residents that are coming into to the north. Monday night, we had the discussion about the 20% senior discount with respect to the general fund absorbing the senior discount rate. And I thumbed through the binder, and I could not find where we have that line item allocation. But could we not, I know there was some discussion about us incorporating a low-income type discount as well. And I know it was expressed, a reservation, that doing so is a form of, I guess, discrimination or subsidizing one particular segment of society over the other. And for about 20-some years, Monte Vista Water has done it through their budget, and they have not had any court challenges or whatnot to that program. So, and I know other entities do the same, and they don't get challenges as well. So I know it can be done. Even if we increased it 5%, 5% more, like I said, even 10% more, these savings would only be about a $10 savings to these seniors. I know that we're likely going to adopt this budget tonight, but I would like to see us entertain at least looking into the figures and the feasibility of implementing that program. Either an increase for seniors or increasing a low-income discount for residents, or both. So I basically am asking if I know we could probably take the money out of one of these accounts that it would pertain to, and being that the trash allocation or budget comes from the city manager's department. Ed, what I'm trying to get at is I haven't found where the line item is where the present program is being subsidized out of the general fund. What account is it coming from, or where's the what from what line of what bank account is it being drawn from, and is there any other source that we could get the adequate funding to either improve it or implement another program?
Well, you're not going to find a line item because it's part of the budget for BurTech. So there's a number in the budget for BurTech that we pay on an annual basis. That just incorporates the cost that BurTech charges the city for the service. So if the rates that are generated by the residents to pay that fee that BurTech charges the city on an annual basis is short, then the city of Montclair's general fund has to make up that difference. And that's where that difference would come from as far as addressing the senior discount rate. So it's not a line item budget, it's just what we have to pay for the cost of refuse services on an annual basis. And on an annual basis, we are short from what the residents generate, and the general fund simply has to cover that difference. To expand the program to incorporate other members of the population would mean that that shortage that the city generates as far as fees from residents for refuse services goes would be even larger, and the general fund would have to cover that difference. We did run some numbers, and the cost impact on the city annually for the senior program is approximately $120,000 a year. Not knowing exactly the number of household residents in the city that are low income, but doing an estimate on what that number would be, we project that the additional cost to the city general fund would be around $250,000 a year, which would mean that the city would be subsidizing the refuse rate charged by Burtec by about $450,000 to $500,000 annually. And then that number would only grow as refuse rates continue to grow. I don't know that that is a number that the budget can sustain on a long-term basis. And I believe that my statement was that it would be a gift of funds, and that is prohibited by state law. Whether or not the state would challenge us would depend on whether or not there's a challenge to us. And we have to defend ourselves before a court of law in that regard. I can't speak necessarily to the specifics of what Monte Vista Water District is doing. My understanding is that it's the tier rates that Southern California Edison, the gas company, and all utilities provide to low-income residents. The lower amount that you use, and presuming that you provide us an income, we will guarantee that this is going to be the rate for this tier. But if you exceed beyond that tier, you will be paying a higher rate just like everybody else does. We don't have the ability to do that. We can't tier refuse because we don't know what the volume of refuse that any one household is disposing of on an annual basis. Unless you direct us to hire people to go out and look into every trash can every week and weigh the volume of their waste, we have no way of tiering. And so it's a flat rate. And as Mr. Aragon indicated at the last meeting, there are smaller cans, and they can rent a smaller can if that's the choice that they want to go. I don't know that that necessarily produces a lesser rate. It's just a lesser fee to rent the can. That's all it is. So they still have to pay the monthly rate, which the council approves. And by the way, city ordinances mandate that there be a refuse service. And so residents do have to participate in it. There's no ability to exit out of it.
Right.
A lot of residents ask to do that, but that's not permitted under the municipal code. So I don't see how we can actually implement a program except the council just does it as a blanket reduction and makes the general fund pick up the cost.
Just a quick follow-up. Your $250,000 a year estimate was for what?
That would be just for the low-income subsidy, and that's just a guesstimate based on what we think maybe the percentage of households in the community might be low income. But then I also have to point out that every year, these individuals would have to report to us what their income is on an annual basis. And I thought I heard from the council just the other day when we were talking about ADUs that that was a horrible prospect to impose on this community and on staff that they collect that kind of data, but that's exactly what you would be asking us to do.
Just a side comment, the statement about looking into every trash can to check volume, I would agree that that would be excessive. And I understand the presentation we had last Monday. It would be the same price to pick up a smaller barrel versus a larger barrel because you're having the same truck, same employees. So it would still incur the price,
Yeah.
irrespective of the price the resident's paying for the smaller barrel. But that said, I still think it's absurd that even the trash companies are now being forced to go through neighborhoods and inspect cans now to make sure they're not throwing the food in the wrong barrel. And that has happened already in the city because residents have posted that they've been issued warnings and whatnot because they've had their barrels looked into. So I think that is just an absurd practice. But anyhow.
I think what they do, if I might comment on that for just a second, I think what they do is when they lift the barrel and they dump it, they have mirrors to see what is coming out of the barrel. And if they detect that the barrel has been contaminated, that's when they leave a notice on the barrel. I don't believe they actually physically check barrels except through that process.
Okay. All right, well, thank you for that. Overall, colleagues, I actually am quite pleased with this budget. I actually, in my opinion, think it's the best budget that I've seen in the 4 short years that I've been here. So it seems like it's a continuation of last year's budget with some major significant improvements and a continuation of the investments that we've committed to and started implementing. So I I know in perhaps 21, 22, I had some reservations, but still voted for those budgets. I don't have that many this time around. So thank you to all the department heads that had their say in this and their presentation. I think it speaks volumes as to the progress that the city is making and the continuity and consistency of investments that the city is making for the betterment of residents in all areas. So I commend it, and I'm actually quite pleased. So thank you.
Okay, let's go with Bill.
Yes. I will continue with where Councilmember Lopez left off. I think there has got to be some way we can help our low-income and senior families. A 20% increase is huge. If I were to say to anybody on this dais that I'm going to increase your taxes 20%, they would revolt. But I guess increased taxes on some incomes, we revolt. Increased taxes on another form of income, and we're just supposed to take it. 20% of our families are right below the poverty line. We've got to find a way to help them. They cannot pay this. I hear people are struggling to pay trash bills as it is. We have council meetings where we get pages and pages and pages of people who cannot pay their trash bill. We need to look into this and see what we can do. I'm going to be in Sacramento in a couple of weeks, and I may just talk to a few people up there and see if there's something we can do state law-wise. There's got to be something. Along the same lines, I don't know where we can come in on this, but I hear from families who cannot afford internet. Their children are in school, and they cannot afford internet. I'll hear the excuse from people about, oh, well, you know, they can go to the library for 15 minutes or whatever. You can't do that. You can go there, 15 minutes doesn't do it. Is there something we can look into for the next budget cycle, whether it's a grant, whether it's partnering with our internet service providers, to be able to help these families?
Well, that is some of the grants that are coming online. They're designed to assist poor, low-income individuals with access to the internet. The problem for us is that these grants are designed for rural areas. They are designed to target the Midwest, and California is not necessarily high on the list for these kind of grants. We're going to try, and Mr. Nguyen is working, our information technology director is working with Alyssa Kalunga, our grant specialist, who's done a tremendous job in developing all of the grants we have right now. We have a meeting next week. We will be reviewing a number of grants, and we are making every effort to make certain that we can get some grants that will allow us to offset the cost for residents related to the cost for internet access. Our only concern right now is the competitive nature of them, because California is not on the list for getting a lot of these grants because they were primarily targeted for the rural states.
And there may be some things I can look into on that. I know some of the people with the internet providers. I'll see what I can find out. And also, it could be something we can start talking to our members of Congress, or probably more specifically our U.S. senators, because they would cover the whole state of California. And if this is a problem in the state of California, we need it addressed because our families are struggling. And you can't, I mean, we have families who can barely afford milk. The kids need to be able to study, and internet is what it is today. It's not when I was growing up where I could sit at the Montclair library for 3-4 hours and do my work. But we'll have to start looking into that. Thank you.
Okay, Carissa.
Thank you. So Montclair is small but mighty, and one of the things that I've noticed this year, as in all of the past years, is there's two things that have really just been incredible help to our budget, and one of them is the grants. In the last 8 years, I don't even know how these numbers work, but $101 million applied for, 40 million received, and 84 pending. So we must have received probably some that were not applied for, which is just absolutely fantastic. And in just 8 years alone, since 2018. Obviously, for as small a city as we are, that's just unparalleled amount of grants that we have applied for and received. And two, I think one thing that we stand out for is our community service and community involvement. We have residents that love their city. They show up, they serve on the Community Activities Commission, they volunteer in any capacity that they can. And one of the ways that that's so impactful is, for instance, the Community Activities Commission does the home beautification project. And they drive around and they encourage homeowners to beautify their properties, and the homeowners with the most beautiful drought tolerant and the most beautiful non-drought tolerant homes will receive an award from the city. And it's those small things that just encourage people to keep their homes looking nice and kept clean, and word of mouth travels and people clean their houses and their neighborhoods. And those are things that don't cost the city too much money, but it makes a huge impact. And obviously there is a lot of time spent and city resources through city staff, but compared to other avenues of city cleanup, those sorts of creative avenues just save a ton of money. And I love the fact that we are able to use our volunteers and those types of resources to make differences in our community. It's wonderful. Also, I understand that now our personnel is relatively unchanged for the year, and I hope that as appropriate and as more development comes about, and as there's an increase in a need for services, we will be able to add on more personnel. Is there wiggle room in the budget in the event that that comes sooner than anticipated? Or do we not expect that we'll need that in the next year or so as far as housing development? I know the mall's going to take a while before things really start coming about, but as far as the need for additional personnel, you don't see that happening in the near
Personnel to support
future?
the service requirements for the community, particularly with expansion of housing?
Exactly.
Oh, well, if we need personnel, we'll add personnel.
Okay.
We're always looking at new avenues. For example, one of the recommendations in the budget message is that to address the issue related to the loss of sales tax revenues due to the online purchases. The problem there is that if you buy something online and it's shipped out of a city that has a fulfillment center, and that fulfillment center is in a sales tax sharing agreement with that particular fulfillment center, and we all know who the big guy on the block is that we're talking about when we talk about online shipping. Their process is to enter into these sales tax sharing agreements with these cities that have lots of land that can house these massive warehouses. And if you give us back 50%, 75% of the sales tax that we generate out of sales from here, we'll declare everything that ships out of here, doesn't matter what city it goes to, that this host city is the point of sale. You will get all the taxes. We're not getting that now. Online purchases are impacting 420 out of the 460, 80 cities in the state of California. 39 cities are benefiting from these sales tax sharing agreements. And so there is a recommendation in the budget, and it's only to put the thought out there, that we consider down the road if we do not find other means to address this issue. And right now we have a committee with the League of California Cities that is going to be making recommendations to the legislature that you simply have to amend the online sales tax component of state law to reverse this and change it. And these large companies can't enter into these tax sharing agreements, and they can't name that city as the point of sale for everything. The point of sale should be the city where it is delivered to. And that way we would recapture that. But if the legislature doesn't do that, a recommendation that we're making is that the council consider down the road that we assess a tax. It would have to go to the voters, and the voters would have to approve it, but it would be a tax on the shipping businesses that ship the products here to Montclair, and they would have to determine the gross receipts that they receive from those sales that come to Montclair, and then you have to give us our share of the Bradley Burns sales tax, the 1%, our transactions tax, 1.25%, and then we recapture the money that we're losing. We, again, would have to sell that to the voters, but if the state's not going to do it for us, we have to contemplate doing it ourselves. We're not asking the council to consider that right now, but we're only putting it out there that we're asking that you consider it in the short term. But when it comes to generating funds, certainly the cannabis one is another means to do that, going after all of these grants. And I have to comment on the grants. These managers sitting in this room and others in this organization, they are doing a tremendous job in securing grant funds for this community that, frankly, when I attend meetings with other city managers, they're shocked at what Montclair is receiving. We have done that kind of job in generating grants for this community. As also indicated in the presentation, it helps that we have the 2021 lease revenue bonds to provide a matching fund to get those grants, because a lot of them require that matching component. And many cities our size don't have that available funding. In fact, this council is lucky that it has a very healthy reserve fund as well, in addition to the revenues that are generated by the 2021 lease revenue bond to use as matches to go after these substantial grants. One of them, in fact, we've just applied for is a $35 million grant to do active transportation in North Montclair that will actually help to pay for the cost of doing the improvements on Fremont and Arrow Highway. That grant would require $7 million matching component. Most cities can't do that. We can, because we've got that 2021 lease revenue bond that will provide the fund. We were otherwise going to spend the money anyway. So the 2020 lease revenue bond is only now given a portion much smaller than what we otherwise would have spent on a project that would have cost us a significant amount of money. So we're lucky that we have the funding capacity to do the things that we're doing, but we're also fortunate that we have a tremendous team of personnel who are reaching out and going after these grants aggressively and making the hard decisions about, okay, is this a competitive grant, and what is our chances of doing it, and how do we rate ourselves? And if we go after this grant now and we lose, what are our chances of going after it a second time now that we've had this experience? And that hard decision to go ahead and spend that money anyway and maybe not get the grant has paid off numerous times in going after again, and we get the grant later on. So we're taking these chances, and the results are clearly paying off tremendously. But again, back to your issue of personnel, yes, we will add the personnel. We've asked that we did freeze some positions because grants became available. And after those grants expire, the city has to absorb the cost of maintaining those positions. And we will do that, and we're prepared to do that.
Fantastic. Thank you.
I'm going to take a 5-minute break. 5-minute break. Okay, so we're back in session again. Ed, the reason why the AC is not working in this room, I mean, it's cold in this room because that part we purchased last.
That is correct, controllers.
That's the reason why
And
I'm
once
trying
they're
to
in,
get
we'll
that.
be able to regulate it with that little device right there.
Perfect. Well, there's the answer. So we'll try to do better hopefully next time. Yeah, well, we can sell some meeting here if you wanted to, I guess.
Right.
All right, so Ben and Bill, you guys want to speak again?
Just to follow up, based upon the dialogue going between a couple colleagues, regarding personnel, this budget ends the lateral hiring bonus, correct? For police officers?
Yes, unless the council renews it through a new submission of an agenda report, yes, it does.
Okay, and then that was what I wanted to ask, because if staffing levels in PD started dropping again, I like the flexibility of having that instituted, because clearly it was a success. And then regarding the point of sale, just a quick statement / question. you had stated that the point of sale should be determined by where the package is delivered. But then I thought, well, what if a Montclair resident purchases an item, let's say a TV, and it's a gift and ships it to Rancho Cucamonga? Based upon your statement, it's where it's delivered to should get the point of sale money, and I would disagree with that because I would hope that the discussion would go along the lines of, it should go at the address in which the person purchasing makes that purchase.
Yes, and so generally, when you talk about the point of delivery, probably 98% of the time, probably even more than that, it's to the home or the residence of or the business where the credit card is registered. And so I hear what you're saying, and so probably the more appropriate way to say that would be that the point of sale is to where the person's credit card is registered to.
Yes.
But generally, that would be the residence or the place of business.
Yeah. All right, thank you. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Bill.
And Mr. Mayor, it's along these lines, this is not a criticism of any local government. This is how somehow the state or somebody somewhere has complicated this very issue of point of sale. Years ago, I remember in my house, catalogs that said J.C. Penney, Montgomery Ward, Sears and Roebuck, Spiegel, a couple of others. You'd order something, no internet, you pick up the phone, you made the physical call. You ordered the items. You would go down and look in a section of the catalog. It would say California, you'd look to see what city you're in, and it would tell you the sales tax to add. Or if you were just sitting at home and ordered out of the catalog, you wrote on all the numbers of the things you were ordering, a pillow, a teddy bear, knives and forks, whatever it is, and you'd look again. It would, oh, okay, the city of XYZ in California charges X%. You did that, and that city got that percentage of sales tax. Whatever went to the state, went to the state. So let's say the state was 4%. They look down, oh, Montclair is 0.5. Okay, so I add 4.5%, add it up, and there it goes. And they were able to get cities money in that era. The sales tax was distributed. I don't know why we've complicated this when it could be so much easier, especially with computers. That's just a comment. And again, when I'm in Sacramento in a couple of weeks, maybe I'll make that, although it won't be related to what I'm dealing with, but I may just make that comment because I think it makes more sense. We could do it in the 60s and 50s, and I guess 40s before that. I don't know. I think we can do it now.
Thank you, Bill. This is a very good budget 2 years in a row. I can remember in the past some pretty challenging budgets. One reason why this is a very good budget is, again, is Measure L that was adopted by the voters in November 2020, which generates about $11.1 million in sales tax revenue to the city. Obviously, $2.5 million of that's going towards the bond obligation, and then the other parts of it going to other parts of the budget. And I think the obligation or the commitment we made to the residents at that time is that we want to impact or improve our services, stabilize our services, create more capital improvement projects in the city, economic development projects, park improvements, street improvements, et cetera. That's the commitment we made as a city council at that time. That's a commitment, and that's continue to be a commitment we make as we adopt this budget today. So I want to compliment staff for all the hard work for putting this together. And I want to say that I think our budget and our city budget is much more stable position than maybe some other cities. I know it's a lot better in the state of California, who's dealing with a deficit. I know there were some comments made earlier regarding the trash, assistance for low-income residents, and also assisting high school students or low-income with Wi-Fi. And really, my feeling on that is that we'll have our trash rate or study in August, and we'll see what the response is. But really, we have money right now, but doesn't mean we always have this money to subsidize different projects and programs here in Montclair. We're doing it for the seniors. That's a long time commitment that the city council has done. We'll continue to do that. But state of California needs to step up too. If there is a need, they already done it for other low-income programs. then that's where it should come from. I think, you know, if there's a Wi-Fi issue with the schools, especially here in Montclair, because of income categories, then, you know, the State of California should step in and making sure that students in Montclair and other communities, similar communities, have the Wi-Fi they need for their education. But I'm not here to debate that. But nevertheless, can I get a budget for the budget? Can I get a motion tonight?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt the consent calendar, items A, B, C, and D as presented.
Okay, that's in the
I'll
consent
second.
calendar. We've got a second by Councilmember Rue, and let's vote. Okay, that's approved. Thank you very much. We're adjourned.